Greetings, fellow plebeians and patricians, Rhadamant here. Thank you for tuning in to the first episode of a new series covering Roman Triumph. If you would like to skip the game's overview or the setup of this series, please use YouTube chapters. Roman Triumph is a survival city builder, colony sim set in Roman times, where you must lead your people to build a city from the ground up and fortify it with walls and defenses to survive against hordes of barbarians and mythological beasts alike. All the while, you have to appease the gods and gain their favor, or risk them spurning you and working to thwart your progress. In this specific series, I'll be playing on normal difficulty on pretty default map settings. So let's get started. Here is the world generation, where you can pick the... Eventually, once more content for this game is introduced, you'll be able to pick more of the details here, but right now it's just valley, regular lakes and mountains, moderate fertility, and default other settings. And as you can see, there is a seed here that can change terrain formation. So here's my seed. It is 48497. Now, as far as difficulty goes, we have got easy, normal, and then no mythological threats or no threats at all. I'm going to be playing on standard or normal. And we are going to be Yodaville, as we are almost always Yodaville. Right, bud? He's not even paying attention. How rude. So, as I said, pretty normal settings and normal difficulty. The major decisions will be determined by live polling, and the goal of this stream is just to showcase the game mechanics. The game isn't released yet, but there is a playable demo on Steam. So let's get started. To the esteemed governor. As our empire stretches its reach, I entrust you with a critical mission. Venture north and establish a settlement on the frontier. Your duty is not only to build and lead, but to protect our citizens from the dangers that lurk beyond. The wildlands are home to more than wandering barbarians, creatures of myth and legend, like Hydra and other beasts. Threaten the realm. Fortify your settlement and defend against those looming threats. Lead with wisdom, strength, and vigilance, and may your rule bring safety and prosperity. Farewell and good fortune. Let me lower the game volume just a tad. Alright, so right at the start here, it says build near a small and large rocks and iron ores. Use terrain to your advantage to ensure you have fertile land near you to build farms on, indicated by the green overlay. So this is where you're picking your starting location, given your map seed. It is important to have at least one of these like stone quarries and iron mines, as they are strategic resources that you will need building up your empire. And then it also indicated that you want to be near fertility. So if we take a look here at the bottom, there is different overlays, like traversable terrain overlay to see where enemies can walk through and where they can't, to try to build a city nestled within walls, for instance. And then you have the fertility overlay. And the fertility overlay is where you can plant crops. So as you can see, there's a bit of the fertile area here in the middle. There is some iron up this way and stone. And there's iron and stone here. This, like, kind of smack dab in the middle, seems to be a pretty good spot to build our start of our settlement. Now, as far as the animals go, you can see that there's these little deer icon. They move around a lot. So it's less about positioning your city where they are, because your hunters can always go to where the animals are. How important is water? At present, not very important, but there is a bunch of stuff on the roadmap, I think, that pertains to water. So let's go ahead and settle here. And in the top right, you can see the goals here. In fact, I bet my overlay is going to interact with that in a negative way, so I'm going to move that down preemptively. I'm going to do that for Yoda too. Alright. So once I unpause the game, which is spacebar, we will build the Castrum, which is the sort of like town hall, if you will. And the next goal here is to build some starters of housing, a hunter hut, gather wood, and gather stone. So the domuses, the houses, are very quick construction, and here's their construction cost. So at the bottom of the screen here, most of the construction is the big buttons here. And then here is gathering resources, roads, deleting stuff, overlays, and menu. Like terraforming, etc. And then over here is the research tree, religion, job priorities, and armies. And we'll get into that in a minute. So in terms of domuses, your houses and most of the industries do not like to overlap with one another. People don't want to live near like mines and lumber mills and the like. So, and there's also a lot of buildings that you unlock later on, like the tavern, the hospital, etc., that have a sphere of influence benefiting the houses around them. And the houses around them increase your happiness. So when you're laying out your town, it's important to lay it out in such a way that the houses are clustered together, but not all that too far from your industries. So that's what I am planning now. So we did have iron ore here and stone here, which will be our quarry and our iron mine. So likely I'm going to want to build the houses to the north so as to not encroach upon the industries down south. So let's go ahead and stick our domuses 1 and 2. So those are the two houses that will fulfill the basics on the top right. The other part of the basics is the hunter's hut. Now, most buildings need to be close to roads, but there are some exceptions, like mines and hunter's huts and the like. So I'm going to unpause the game so that we can gather wood, because I don't have enough wood to build the hunter's hut yet. And I'm going to be reading through all of this information as it is relevant, rather than to read the overlays now. Because it throws a lot of information at you, but it's not all immediately relevant. So in order to gather wood, here's what you do. Gathering resources overlay is here. And you can click wood, and stone, remove from gathering or gathering settings. I am going to set up a gather wood zone. And I am going to drag it where the future houses are going to be placed. And I've already placed the houses. If we open up the jobs priority here, this is a very important tab. And the reason for it is some jobs will scale and some will not. And there's job priorities from top down. So in this case, if you had tons and tons and tons of construction projects and builder was at your top of your jobs priority, everybody in your colony will temporarily become a builder to get the building done and then go back to the normal jobs. So if you don't want to do that, what you can do is you can limit the amount of people that can work there. This is what the overlay is saying, but I'll just show you myself. So if we want to say, hey, never hire more than 10 jobs and enable the limit, now when there's more than 10 builders worth of work to do, they will never hire more than 10. And this is really important because if you're trying to cut down a huge swath of forest, let's say, and you queue up, just as an experiment, I queue up all of this, as you can see, the wood gathering job now can employ 167. If your wood gathering was near the top of your jobs priority, everyone's going to become a wood gatherer and cut down wood until your wood stockpile is basically full. So you should really control job priorities. They're quite important to take control of. So we're building the two domuses, and then we'll build a hunter's hut once I have the material. Also, Laura the Noob, Dastardly Dave, Azaroon, Louie, Glitch, and IQ. Thank you for the resubs and cheers. I'll drink to that. Now, gathering stone is very much like gathering wood. There are small stones all around the map that you can just gather from the ground. And then there are the larger stone quarries that require a built quarry, but that requires research first. So we have the two domuses. And these two domuses can house a certain amount of citizens. They have comfort, and the people in there will have health and happiness. I know it's partially over the overlay. And then it has an like an upkeep. And the upkeep is very important because this game, unlike a lot of the other games like this, can suffer from very rapid colony collapse if you don't properly manage the upkeep. And I'll probably end up demonstrating that sometime down the line. So we just need a little bit more wood in order to get the hunter's hut going. There we go. And I'm going to stick the hunter's hut up here. And the hunter's hut has an efficiency score based upon how much game is around. And the game tends to cluster around where the forests are. So if you cut down all the forests, you're not going to have a lot of game. But as you can see, the hunter's hut isn't constrained by needing to be placed near the road systems. So I'm just going to plop it out here, slightly out of the way, where they can hunt plenty of game, no problem. Now, back to the job's priority. As you can see, the priority here for the goal above my head is to gather wood and gather stone. So here's the issue. I have like an near infinite amount of wood gatherers because I queued up that massive swath of wood to be cut down. And if I ever want to gather stone, I'm going to need to max count how much woodcutters I ever have. So I'll restrict it to 10 rather than to be unlimited. Alternatively, what you can do is you can raise stone gathering above wood and like restrict it to like, let's say 5 or something, and then have wood gatherers unrestricted so that it's an overflow. And at the top of your screen here, there's the available workers, and that's basically how many people are unemployed. So you're going to try to keep people employed at all times. So now we have the domuses, and at the moment there are 2 vacant beds, as well as the wood and stone being collected for the basics goal. If you ever want to skip any of the task lists, you can, but you don't get the rewards for it, so I don't suggest that you do that. Unless you're stumped or it's broken or something like that. Did the UI freeze about the max number? Yeah, I think so. The quantity of wood cutting. I'm not all that concerned about that, though. But yeah, this is a game in early, or not even in early access, it's pre-release, so it's gonna have bugs. Bugs and balancing issues. Pretty typical of unreleased games. Alright, we've already gathered all the stone that we need. So what I can do in this case is change the wood gathering to be higher than stone. So we fulfill the wood gathering requirements for the basics. And I just got a little alert here. Citizens are happier when they have neighbors. So like clustering the houses together come with a bit of a benefit. And will add to comfort. So the happiness of your colony is a weighted summary of health, comfort, culture, recreation, and safety, as well as buffs and debuffs. So debuffs might be something like recent crimes or murders. Buffs might be blessings of the gods or something like that. And it all comes out to a rough productivity bonus. So as I was saying before, with the upkeep for the houses, this game does suffer from like death spiral pretty quickly. When things go bad, they go bad real bad. Where, you know, if your happiness drops and your productivity drops and your productivity drops, and then your starvation happens and your starvation causes more unhappiness. You can kind of see how this is going. You have to be very cautious about keeping a watchful eye on your upkeep and your resources and your happiness, because if you don't, well, death spiral. And in the case of the upkeep materials, if you don't supply, so like let's say I didn't have a surplus of wood to be able to supply to the houses, they will get destroyed. All buildings that require upkeep will get destroyed, so they will fall apart without the necessary resources to keep them up, which is a relatively unique game mechanic compared to a lot of the games like this. Meaning that if all of a sudden you run out of, like, let's say stone, all the buildings that require stone upkeep will fall to ruin. So it's one of those situations where you have to keep a very close eye on your resources, because it's very easy for things to break down or people to starve. All right. Tacos, thank you for the raid. And welcome. Welcome to you and your crew. So the next goal here is agriculture. So let me update the priority. Build farms. And sorry, this game has edge scrolling and there's like no way to turn it off, which is why I'm going to be like panning around. As you can see, I don't think it has edge scroll off. I always try to turn it off because I have to tab out as a streamer, but that's just not a option that I have here. So now it wants us to build food storage and wheat farms. So a wheat farm requires farmers, and in the winter it produces less crop. It also heavily relies on the fertility soil score of the soil beneath it, and Ceres' influence. The god Ceres will influence whether a farm is successful or not. So in terms of the overlay, I kind of like... It looks to me like there is good potential farmland in this area here. So I think what I'm going to do is cancel all of the gathering and start clearing the land out this way. So it's going to take me a while to get those farms up and running. I might want to, as a stopgap measure, put some farms down just to keep people fed in the meantime. But the other thing is we can rely on the hunter to bring in food. So, speaking of the hunter, right now no one's hunting. The hunting got lower priority than everything else. And as a result, no one was employed for hunting, which is why I keep saying the jobs priority is really important to keep an eye on. Because new jobs are going to be tasked at the bottom. So, like, let's say you have a plague outbreak and you're just built a hospital and you want to have doctors. Well, the doctoring jobs are going to be below everything else, and if you don't reprioritize the job list, you're going to end up dying from the plague. I don't know. I've never used the terraforming tool before, but it looks like the ground here is uneven. And I'll probably try to set up a road that's straight rather than going around that hill. So we'll put the farms around here once the land is cleared. So we have 2 stone gatherers and 6 wood gatherers. And the other thing that might be nice is to get some additional domuses, so that we can expand our population a bit. The lower terrain thing didn't work either. Suppose you didn't see me do it, but it's not doing anything. It might be that I don't have the resource costs or something. I'm not really sure. Don't really care. Road is already getting built, so. So one part of this task is the food storage, and I'm just going to put the food storage, let's say right here. Next to our Castrum. So the headquarters, one of the benefits of the headquarters, and this is kind of like Age of Empires or something, is it does act as like a tower, if you will. So if you get attacked, it will fire automatically. Let me hide the overlay. It will fire automatically in defense. It's not a lot of arrow fire, but it's better than nothing. So at the very early start of the game, it can provide a little bit of extra security if you are getting overwhelmed by barbarians early on. And there is one of the farms. And we'll just continue to clear out all the land that's going to block progress. And I'm going to speed up the game a little bit, up to 2 speed. I like how there's like a deer that just like wandered straight into our Castrum. It's like, okay, make yourself at home, I guess. And as soon as the trees are out of the way, we'll put the farms down. So these farms, once we employ farmers, which is now going to be the highest priority, are going to, obviously work the farms and grow grain per month. And it's not a particularly efficient food source. The food sources get more efficient as they get more complex. So bakeries are better than farms, for instance. Or farms by themselves, I should say. And our population is growing a little bit, so I'm going to get another domus in to support it. The maintenance system gives you surviving Mars PTSD? Yeah. Like, all of a sudden running out of polymers and everything shuts down, you're like, oh my god, we're dead. Yeah, it's similar to that system, I suppose. So another thing to keep an eye on is stockpile max. So in this case, because I don't have extra stockpiles for wood, I can only store up to 250 of it. So having anyone try to cut down trees when there's no room to put in your stockpiles is not really worth your time. So just keep an eye on your stocks level to make sure you're not maxing out your stockpiles. And there we go. We have got some more domuses and more farmers. So taking a look at the employment, a stone gatherer, mostly wood, some farming, some hunting. And these hunters are getting 30 meat a month at 125% efficiency. So if we wanted to increase the efficiency, I could move it around a little bit. I'm fine with it being at 125. And then down here we have the wheat farms at 21 or 22 a month, depending on who's working it. And pretty soon, the last trees that are blocking the 4th farm to finish the agriculture goal will be cleared, and we'll be able to move on. There we go. So in this case, my stone collection is completely full. I'm going to briefly pause the game and take a look at any of the... I don't believe I really have any stone collection going on right now, so I don't need to cancel it. But there's nowhere else to put stone at the moment, so collecting is kind of pointless. We're also pretty close to the wood max. So similarly, I might cancel some of the wood clearing because there's not going to be anywhere to put the wood. There is a tutorial element that will tell me to build a stockpile, but I don't really want to get ahead of the tutorial, at least for now, until the tutorial elements are over. Just do them in order. To analyze the defense of the city, if we open up the terrain affordance overlay, we have a bottleneck here, a bottleneck here, a bottleneck here, and here. It's a little open to the north, but we do have the lakes. So just thinking about planning out the total surrounding areas being defended, I'm trying to keep that in mind as I build. All right, next goal. Next goal is to train an army. And we want to get 2 gladius, 2 pilum, and an archer tower. So if you click on the Castrum here, and you go down to your army tab at the bottom left, you don't actually have to click the Castrum. You go to the army tab in the bottom left, here are the units that are available. So there isn't archers yet in the game, that's coming soon, but there is higher level stuff that will unlock with research later on, but it wants 2 legionaries. So the legionary or gladius legionaries are stronger in melee combat and faster attacks, but cannot fight creatures. And then they have a monthly cost of food and a immediate cost of a civilian plus materials. And then the pylum are similar. They have weaker attacks, but in melee, but they can throw spears at enemies and fight like flying creatures and the like. So 1, 2, 3, 4. The other goal is to build a wood archer tower. So wood archer tower can be upgraded. So the range that you can see of its attacks will increase with upgrades. And I do find that it's pretty useful to put archer towers close to where your domuses are. When you get attacked by barbarians, they typically go for your homes, go for where your tax centers are. So I think in this case, I'll put it here that overlooks some of the domuses and also overlooks the Castrum as well. Now, as far as the army goes, they train over time. They're not instant. So it's important when you are getting attacked by barbarians that you have a standing army ahead of time. Because if you're being attacked, anytime you're attacked, you're typically given like 6 months of advance warning that there's like an army or enemies that are marching on you, or 5 months or so. But my point is, it takes, you know, like half a month to actually train the units. So if you don't have the units ahead of time and they show up, you're screwed. So make sure you have the defenders ready to go before you need them. It is not instant. And we're also seeing in the bottom left here, the chat log, that people are visiting the city. They're basically becoming citizens. So you can see I have available workers 4. I basically have 4 people that are not even doing work at the moment. And I think what I'm going to do is hire 2 of them as farmers. Even though the tutorial isn't really asking me to do that, I'll just get ahead of what I think this city will need. And it's a lot of research requires food. And of course, soldiers require food. And if soldiers don't receive food, they die. Just like how buildings will fall apart without the raw upkeep materials. So it's really important to make sure that your stocks never get too low. Omri, thank you for the resub. Cheers. All right, so that's the archer tower. If we take a quick look at it, it has, here, let me hide the overlay again. It has a certain amount of health, damages per shot. So as you can see, it's not as good as the Castrum. Doesn't have as good range as the Castrum. And its damage per minute is 800 versus the tower at 343. But unlike the Castrum, this thing can be upgraded. So if you take a look at the arrows here, you can have them have better weaponry later on. Or tougher towers, etc. One of our citizens died working at the Hunter. So not all jobs are safe necessarily, and the Hunter's Hut is one such that is not. And that's pretty typical. There is some research later on that allows you to make certain workplaces safer. All right, so the next requirement is brickwork. Set up brickworks. Bricks is a very important resource for empire building, and it's pretty straightforward to set up. Basically, you just have a clay pit that feeds a brickworks. But what's important here is the clay pit has a negative sphere of influence, unlike the farms, which don't. So people don't want to live near clay pits or brickworks. It's also important to note that I have the large quarry here and the iron mine here. So it might make sense to set up stockpiles for these industries, roughly equidistant between all 3 spots. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to run a road. Trees are blocking some of it, but I want to run a road down here and set up my brickworks and ironworks in that area. So to that end, let's go ahead and clear some of the trees in this spot too. Now, in terms of soldiers, you can issue orders, put them in formations. You can tell them to muster, etc., etc., and you can also put them in control groups. One thing to note, which is a little weird, the control groups, unlike most games, which would be like control number, is shift number, and also time controls are 1, 2, 3. So don't use control groups 1, 2, 3, because if you do, anytime you try to select your army, like if I put them on control group 1, it would also be setting the game speed to 1. Probably will get fixed at some point, but I thought that was pretty funny that they use the same keybinds. That got me hung up a bit of like, why is my game constantly speed 1? Oh yeah, because it's control group 1, and okay, yeah, I get it. Alright, we have 10 vacant beds, so we don't really need any additional domus building just yet. And it looks like everybody's employed. There's no one working as the archer, though. So let's raise the archer priority up below the farmer, but above the hunter. And that way someone works in the archer tower at all times. It might be a little excessive given there's no threats to the settlement right now. So actually, I'm going to drag it back down just because we have very low population. I might as well have everyone working for industries. There is custom abilities for keybinds. Yeah, you can rebind them so that speed isn't alpha 1, alpha 2, alpha 3, which is number key 1, 2, 3. That way control groups don't relay. I just generally speaking don't use custom keybinds so that when I'm streaming games, I don't confuse people using custom binds that you would have to change for yourself, because that makes it needlessly confusing for people to follow along, in my opinion. Alright, so we have the space for a straight road, and then we're going to build a small stockpile. We'll build a clay pit and a brickworks. And this will support the production of bricks, which is a backbone of a lot of the advanced buildings that you're going to be tasked with building. So brick production is really important in the long run. No workers are working here. Yep. I have too many builders. So this is the case that I was mentioning before. If you have too many building projects, it will transition your workforce from whatever they were working on previously to building. As building is often at the top, you can always drag it to reorder it. But I'm just going to limit the amount of builders to 5 so that we don't furlough farmers because, you know, not having food is a bad problem. I am 215 out of 310 in terms of storage, so we're actually getting pretty close to like max storage. And what I might want to do in that case is, because it's really inexpensive, build another food stockpile to support a little bit more food store so that I don't go near the max. And as you can see, building the regular stockpile, my wood max went up as well, as did stone and everything else. So in terms of strategic resources, clay is the third one. Extracted at the clay pit typo. Yes. And then brick. Get bricks from a Brickworks. And it's going to be at the lowest priority here. So I'm going to raise it up a little bit, knowing that nobody's doing it right now. But as the buildings are done, they'll eventually work in the clay pit and brickwork. And there they go. One of each. All right, the next priority here is build support buildings. And by that I mean the academy, which is for research, the tavern to keep your citizens happy, and the hospitium, which is like a hotel of sorts. So here's the hospitium, and guests, like, that come to visit in lodging. And it increases the support of the houses around it. So it's good to cluster around your houses. So the hospitium, aka a small hotel, is a larger and more comfortable home for citizens. Building residential blocks is good for comfort. So it produces comfort in the surrounding neighborhoods. And then likewise, once we have the materials, I'll also build a tavern. So a tavern requires brick, which we're getting from the Brickworks, but it, you know what a tavern is. What's happening right now is, because the clay worker hadn't actually built up a supply of clay, the Brickworks didn't have bricks to turn, or clay to turn into bricks, which, again, I'll hide the overlay, is a 1 wood, 5 clay equals 9 bricks. And we are getting to the point where I am going to disable 2 of the farms, the northern 2 farms, as we're needing the work elsewhere. So the hospitium is just about half done. And the brick workers are making bricks quick enough that we'll be able to build a tavern soon as well. And the reward for this is gold, which is an important resource to spend for soldiers and research and improvements and upgrades and a whole bunch of things. So don't skip the research and residence task if you can help it. Alright, now that the hospitium is built, I have the resources to build a tavern. And the tavern has an even larger area of effect. So what I want to do is I want to lay it out so that it can benefit like a lot more houses as I construct. But as you can see, there is trees and rocks that are physically in the way, so we're going to need to clear those first. So I have Stone Gatherer 1 and Wood Gatherers 3, and they should be able to clear that within a reasonable amount of time. The hospitium now has a lot more tenant housing, so we should also see some immigration, offering us more available workers to be issued out. And I'm hoping to build the tavern somewhere like here, where it can offer its services to all the houses built around it, rather than to cluster it so it overlays with the Castrum, which would not be useful in the long run. And yes, dying as a hunter is pretty common. The same is true in like iron mines and other industries that are particularly dangerous. And there's nothing I can do about the inherent danger of working there. It's just the way it is for now. Probably place it. Oh, that works. All right, so there's the tavern, and that will take a little bit of time to build. Let's take a look at our jobs priorities. So we still have wood gatherers, but no stone gatherers. Oh, there goes another hunter. Another thing that might not be unreasonable is to, if we have the food, shut down the hunter, so that we won't keep taking citizen losses, but I'm not too worried about that. Congratulations, you have reached 20 population. You just become a vicus. Okie dokie. Despite all the dead hunters, it really hasn't hurt our town growth, so it's no problem to me. Now, the last building they want me to build is the academy, and I'm going to place it here. It doesn't have a sphere of influence bonus or negative or anything like that. And this allows you to start the research tree. So that's going to be pretty handy for growing our tiny little town. Thank you for tuning in to Roman Triumph, which originally streamed live on Twitch March 4th. If you have any feedback or questions for me, let me know in the comments below. If you would like to catch a live stream of mine, Rhadamant.com has my stream schedule and countdown timers to upcoming streams. If you would like to join my online gaming community on Discord, Rhadamant.com has a link to it, as does the description of this video. Thank you so very much for watching, and a special thank you to my Twitch subscribers, Patreon patrons, and viewers like you that support the channel and made it all the way to the credits. Thank you so very much. I hope to catch you next episode or an upcoming stream. Farewell, my fellow Roman citizens.